Welcome back. Welcome into the Premier Mindset by Premier Performance LLC. I'm your host, Trent Mailer, LCSW, licensed clinical therapist and performance coach, and this is episode 42. Often high performers believe their decline happens suddenly. One bad week, one burnout spiral, one drop in motivation. But that's not how it works. The truth is, the fall doesn't start at burnout. It starts at the breakpoint, the moment your internal system begins to slip before you even notice. High achievers push past early signals because they've trained to be resilient, responsible, and relentless. Then one day, they wake up wondering why their sharpness, consistency, and drive aren't where they used to be. The breakpoint shows up quietly, when you're working harder but feeling less effective, when your patience drops even though you should be fine, or when simple tasks suddenly feel heavier than they should. It can hide inside high performance itself, over-preparing so nothing can go wrong, doubling down on effort when clarity drops, or forcing discipline when your body and mind are already overstretched. The skills are still there, you just can't access them the same way. In today's episode, we're breaking down what the breakpoint actually is, the psychological, cognitive, and physiological moment your performance begins to dip long before burnout. You'll learn the earliest signs your system is slipping, why high performers miss them, and how to course correct before you lose momentum. You'll also get strategies to rebuild capacity, restore mental sharpness, and return to your optimal performance zone without needing a full reset. Quick note before we dive in, this podcast is for education and performance growth. It's not a replacement for therapy or medical treatment. If there is something you need, make sure you go and get it. You can watch full episodes of the podcast on YouTube and Spotify, and we have the audio-only version on Apple Podcasts. We post clips and highlights across Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, X, and YouTube, and all the links to the social media accounts are in the show notes, so make sure to get involved and follow along as we build up those communities. If you've ever felt like something shifted, your edge got a little dull, your bandwidth got tighter, or you've been operating at 70% while pretending it's 100, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. What is the breakpoint? In the context of high performers, the breakpoint is the point of exhaustion and capacity overload where an employee or leader, despite their typically exceptional output, can no longer sustain their workload and is at risk of burnout, disengagement, or simply leaving the organization altogether. High performers often have a hard time saying no to additional work and will typically extend their workdays to ridiculous hours to meet demands, letting the strain go far beyond what is reasonably expected of them. High performers often operate at or near this maximum capacity because of this. The breakpoint is the moment they push past their personal threshold, leading to diminishing returns and potential collapse if no intervention comes in. Because managers, leaders, organizations tend to rely heavily on their best people, high performers are prone to burnout if leaders continue to give them more assignments without monitoring their capacity and how they're handling it all. But sometimes it goes beyond that as well, and us high performers have to be aware of where we're at on this spectrum too. Because at the end of the day, we're going to be the best point of reference of just where we're at in that capacity, even if we're not good at seeing it. We're going to talk about ways to get better at noticing it. Without proper support and intervention before the breakpoint is reached, the performance of high performers is likely to decline, and this is often where high performers struggle. It's not because they don't have the talent, the skill, the knowledge. It's because they push themselves to a point where they can no longer produce at that level. The approaching breakpoint is often quiet. You usually don't really see it coming. As high performers may not speak up about reaching their capacity, it's even harder because high performers have conditioned themselves to push through difficult things, to not want to lean on others, not due to like a fear of leaning on others, but more of like, I got this, I can handle this, and I'm going to take care of it on my own. They may still be functioning and performing, but are under clear strain, and eventually the signs just start popping out and you can't not see that they're struggling with this. On top of it, an over-reliance on a few top performers creates vulnerability for the company itself, as losing these key individuals due to burnout can destabilize the business and the team quite intensely very quickly. But there are strategies to prevent high performers from reaching the breakpoint. To prevent reaching this critical point, management and the employees themselves need to monitor workload and capacity. They could do this by communicating openly. Managers and leaders should regularly ask if employees have the bandwidth for new assignments, checking in and seeing how they're doing. We should also encourage speaking up. So high performers should come and talk to people about the issues and struggles that they're dealing with. And this is part of what we're doing here with the Premier Mindset as well, as we're trying to normalize these things and giving you guys the tools so it's easier to talk about these things with others so you don't have to go through it all by yourself all the time. By speaking up, high performers can help manage the capacity and get rest or recharge whenever they need it. We also want to encourage the 85% rule, which suggests that operating at 100% effort constantly leads to burnout and less optimal long-term results. If we treat it like a sprint, we're not going to be able to do the whole race. We have to treat it like a marathon. We have to keep going. It's all about consistency and doing things that work, not just putting that 100% effort in until we can't give anymore. Because eventually you're going to run out because you can't operate at that 100% all of the time. We can only do it in short bursts, just like a sprint. Another thing we can do is consistently valuing contributions and providing developmental opportunities, as these help keep high performers, employees, leaders, managers, teams engaged and motivated. So let's talk about the hidden moment performance starts to decline. This is before burnout is even close. High performers crash long before they realize they're declining, and the brain masks early signs to protect us. The brain masks the early signs of decline in high performers by prioritizing goal-directed action and actively suppressing the neural systems that process emotions and self-monitoring. This allows the individual to continue functioning at a high level despite an underlying depletion of cognitive and emotional resources. Under chronic stress, the brain prioritizes the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for executive functions like planning, decision-making, and focus. This allows the person to maintain performance on complex tasks, but it comes at the cost of down-regulating emotional processing. The high performer may appear composed and professional on the outside, but feel emotionally flat or numb on the inside. Another signal is that the amygdala, which is the brain's fear and stress center, becomes hyperactive under chronic pressure, keeping the body in a constant state of fight or flight mode. High performers often develop strong connections between their prefrontal cortex and amygdala. This allows them to regulate this fear response and continue working, effectively overriding their body's alarm signals. And while we're overriding it, it doesn't mean the alarm isn't going off. We just don't hear it. It's like hitting the snooze button on your alarm in the morning. The alarm still went off. You still should have gotten up 5 minutes ago. Just because it hasn't gone off again or you don't hear it right this second doesn't mean that what you're doing is helping you. Demanding cognitive tasks lead to an accumulation of the neurotransmitter glutamate in the lateral prefrontal cortex. While the brain can clear this with rest, chronic overwork leads to persistent high levels, which hinders that prefrontal cortex ability to function optimally, resulting in mental fog and difficulty with simple tasks, even as expertise remains intact. So maybe this is something you guys have dealt with. You have days where it's like you just can't put out the same output as before. Things are foggier, you can't think straight, you can't think clearly. Things that used to be simple and easy are giving you a hard time now. It just feels like things are just a little clunkier, they're not working very well. And that often comes from that prefrontal cortex being overloaded. High performers' brains may work harder to compensate for the fatigue. Studies have found that burned out individuals use more neural resources to complete tasks than burned out individuals who handle it with less effort. They can perform the task well, but the internal cognitive cost is much higher, a subtle sign of decline that goes unnoticed by the individual and others until a breaking point is reached. Continuous effort of emotional regulation at work depletes neural resources, leaving little left for self-monitoring and emotional processing. This leads to a disconnection from one's own needs and limits, where the individuals feel a lack of fulfillment or a sense of performing their life rather than living it authentically or in a genuine sense. High performers and high achievers often don't notice their breakpoint until it's too late. The psychology behind "I'm fine," denial patterns, and productivity masking discipline becomes the enemy if you ignore the early cues. The psychology behind why high performers often miss their breakpoint until it is too late is rooted in a combination of deeply ingrained beliefs, the use of psychological defense mechanisms like denial and masking, and the normalization of chronic stress, just kind of accepting it for what it is and saying this is just what my life will be. High performers frequently use denial as a defense mechanism to cope with overwhelming pressure and preserve their self concept as capable and resilient individuals. Self worth is fused with achievement. For many high achievers, their identity and self worth are inextricably connected to their accomplishments and productivity. Admitting they are struggling or approaching burnout feels like a personal failure, which is a powerful psychological deterrent, which is often why people will just keep it to themselves or just keep pushing. And this is one of the unique challenges with high achievers and high performers is they're so good at just pushing through struggle and ignoring it and just doing the work anyways, without realizing that their output and the work they're doing is starting to suffer. And this is probably one of the most common things I work on high performers with, which is helping them see their own breakpoints to pull back, reset, recharge. They can come at it full force when they're ready again and not let that gas tank just completely empty until the car stalls on the freeway. Another issue that gets in the way is stoicism is seen as a virtue in most high achieving environments. A culture that rewards endurance and powering through encourages a form of false resilience, where emotional impermeability is valued over authentic emotional processing. Saying I'm fine becomes an automatic, brittle mask to avoid appearing weak or incapable. It's more focused on trying to be fine than actually getting to fine, which means we're ignoring the problems that we're dealing with and we're just trying to push through and power through them. High performers tend to normalize chronic stress symptoms, such as sleep disruption, irritability, constant fatigue, as just part of the job, part of what they're doing, kind of the price of the buy-in. They compare themselves favorably to those with perceived bigger problems, which allows them to dismiss their own warning signals. Comparison's the thief of joy. The more we compare to others and what they're doing and what we're not, the worse we're going to feel about things, even if it's completely inaccurate. Often the drive to achieve is an early learned survival strategy, such as if I perform, I belong. If I achieve, I matter. If I succeed, I will be safe. These deep-seated beliefs cause them to bypass their own needs, emotions, and limits in service of performance, leading to long-term inner emotional neglect. And sometimes we're doing all these things and pushing this far because we want to be accepted or we want to feel good enough. And this can stem from early childhood things, which is why we come in with the therapeutic tools to help with the people we're coaching and kind of doing this work with through Premier Performance to help break those things holding you guys back so you can just succeed and move forward in life in the way that you want to. Productivity masking is the behavior where an individual uses relentless activity and being constantly busy to avoid feeling anything or addressing their underlying emotional and psychological depletion. So we're just trying to stay busy to kind of mask the fact that we're struggling. Because we feel like we kind of create this connection that if I'm doing things, I'm productive. And if I'm productive, everything's fine. But that's not always the truth. And sometimes rest is just one of the most disregarded aspects of high performance. The brain, under chronic stress, suppresses the systems for self-monitoring and emotional processing to prioritize goal-directed behavior. This enables individuals to keep working, but disconnects them from their inner world, leaving them unaware of their accumulating exhaustion until a sudden collapse occurs, and by that point, it's usually too late. We have to be able to check in on ourselves and see what is happening and not just focus on what we need to get done. We have to see how we're doing with it all too. The illusion of functioning. The person is still doing the thing, such as meeting deadlines, being responsible, or giving solid advice, which makes them and others believe they are okay. High-functioning depression, for example, looks like overworking and never resting, not laziness. We can have struggles show up in these levels of high-functioning and high-achieving and high performers because we push through it so much that it actually converts into other ways, but it's still there and it still causes problems. It's still going to cause health issues, sleep disruptions, all these kind of things to keep an eye on. And you might find ways to get past it. You could take, like, say, pills to help you sleep. But again, you're pushing past the internal signals that your body is telling you that there's a problem here. And if we listen to them and take care of them, you're going to make your success sustainable, which is honestly what we all want. No one wants to have just a quick little bit of success. We want sustained success that's going to sustain us through a lifetime. In these arenas, it's common for discipline to become an enemy. The very qualities that fueled success, like discipline, ambition, responsibility, can become liabilities when taken to an extreme. Instead of a tool for success, discipline becomes a rigid driver that forces them to ignore critical early cues, pushing them deeper into burnout. High performers typically miss their breakpoint for several intertwined reasons. First one being gradual erosion. Burnout for high achievers rarely arrives at a dramatic event. It's a slow, quiet erosion of the self masked by consistent external success. The second aspect is a lack of internal permission to pause. Many high performers struggle with the belief that ease and rest must be earned through nonstop work. They plan their breaks like projects, and even stillness must be productive, making it nearly impossible to genuinely disconnect and recover. And this is something I struggled with at one time myself. Especially getting into the stuff with my business early on, I was doing work pretty much 24/7. If I wasn't sleeping or I wasn't working on something else, I was working on my own things. Like even on weekends, I would be doing work a lot of the time, even trying to enjoy other things, like watching a movie or, watching sports or something. I'd have it on, but I'd be doing work as I was doing it. And I would have moments where trying to watch sports or a movie, I would literally feel guilty, feeling like there's stuff I could be doing. There's productive things that need to get done. So I would justify it by saying I could watch it while I'm doing work, so then I'm doing both. I can enjoy the thing and I can get the work done. But it's not sustainable. It's not going to work long term. And that's something I had to work through and learn myself. And these are why these tools are so important, because these traps are so easy to get caught in because they look good. They look like success. But it does not lead to the success that you want. It's not going to lead you on the path towards the life you want to live. Another aspect is the disconnection from the self. Over time, the continuous effort to meet external demands while ignoring internal needs leads to a deep sense of detachment or emotional flatness. They may not feel the fire for their work anymore, but keep going mechanically, thinking if I just hit the next milestone, maybe it'll click into place. We kind of start extinguishing that passion that we had for the work. We start to lose it. It's not giving us that same feel good, that same fulfillment that we wanted. Ultimately, high performers burn out because they are so strong for too long without sufficient relief, mistaking their endurance for invincibility. And then we keep pushing until we can't push anymore. Now we have to find a way to pull ourselves back, and that usually takes a long time. Now let's identify your own personal breakpoint signals. Every high performer has their own unique warning signs. These can be things like overchecking emails, procrastination, mental clutter, over-apologizing, or just withdrawing and isolating. Identifying your unique breakpoint signals requires commitment to self-monitoring and reflection. The key is to notice subtle shifts from your normal self across physical, emotional, and behavioral domains. This is why we've talked about so much reflection through all of these episodes so far, as we have built all this up, because reflection is one of the number one things that's going to help you be more successful. It's not going to necessarily give you the answer right off the bat, but it's going to at least help you figure out what is going wrong and what we need to adjust as we keep moving. So we have to regularly monitor ourselves. The most effective way to spot a unique sign, our unique signs, is through consistent objective self-assessment. We can do this by meticulously recording the frequency and context of your behaviors. For instance, note when checking emails late at night or on weekends, or when beginning to procrastinate on important tasks. Seeing the pattern of how you're working and what you're doing is going to help you change things. Regularly pause and ask, where do I feel tension in my body right now? Doing a quick body scan can really help us realign and connect with ourselves. So pay attention to recurring physical ailments. This could be headaches, muscle aches, or stomach issues that don't respond to rest. These are often the body's first alarm bells. And at the same time, if something's going wrong and feels bad, go get it checked out. We always want to cross off medical first, but if the medical aspect isn't there, We need to figure out the psychological side of it. And this is why we talked about all of this in that episode of psychoneuroimmunology. So if you want to go back to that one and understand that mind-body connection and how it's all kind of running together, that can be pretty powerful to check out too. We also want to use mindfulness or meditation to cultivate a non-judgmental awareness of our thoughts and feelings in the moment. By being still, it becomes easier to spot triggers as they occur. And we can go even further with all this using reflective journaling. Journaling offers a safe, unfiltered space to process emotions and identify patterns that might otherwise be overlooked. So track the gaps. Note the difference between an ideal day and a typical day. Where are the biggest discrepancies? What are you doing on an ideal day? What are you doing on a typical day? This can highlight areas where consistently pushing past limits is occurring so we can better set it up and manage it in a way where the typical can become our ideal day. Because what better life is there if you could literally have your ideal day every single day? We also have to pinpoint energy drainers. Identify specific tasks, interactions, or situations that consistently drain energy. This helps see where boundaries need to be set. Once we know where the energy drainers are, we just interact with them less often so it doesn't drain our energy as much. And if we have to deal with them in some way, whether it's a situation or a person, we got to figure out a strategy to deal with it to come out of it with the least amount of energy drain. And then we want to question the inner critic. Explore the thoughts and expectations of the inner critic that they place on ourselves. We are our own harshest critic. So we got to kind of reflect and explore those things. And are you saying yes to things to just be liked or to avoid failure? If we're saying yes to things due to external reasonings, it can set us up for failure. Because doing things to feel good enough or doing things to be liked or for approval sets us on a path of unsustainability. This helps separate external pressures from genuine desires. We need to operate more with the genuine desires than what we think the rest of the world wants from us. Because if you're trying to give the rest of the world what it wants, you're wearing a mask all the time. And that's never going to allow you to be fully connected to yourself. So here are a couple prompts for you to think about that you could use in your own journaling right now and see where it takes you. First prompt is I know I'm burned out when, and then fill in the blank. It could be I have a short fuse with my family, I can't turn my brain off at night, I stop exercising, whatever it might be. So we just got to start figuring out these signals by noticing these things. Another prompt that you can think about for journaling. What emotion or emotions have you been avoiding lately? What things have you not wanted to feel? Is it sadness? Is it anger, frustration, just being tired? Like what are you avoiding? Another prompt. What parts of me have I been neglecting in order to keep up? What have you been sacrificing? What have you been ignoring? What have you not been doing? We all have to prioritize in everyday life. That's just part of it. There's not enough time in the day to do everything we want to do. But we got to be aware of what are we sacrificing. Are we truly sacrificing low demand things that don't matter a whole lot? Or are we sacrificing pretty important things? This happens a lot with high performers and high achievers as they tend to sacrifice self-care. Working out, eating, sleep, all of this kind of stuff. Because they prioritize the work, so they stop taking care of themselves, thinking that's just going to help them do more work, which is what they want anyways. It just doesn't lead to the success we want. And then seek input from trusted sources. Because high performers are good at masking decline, an outside perspective can provide invaluable insight. So ask someone who knows you well if they've noticed any changes in mood, energy, or behavior. For instance, a colleague might point out that you've become quieter in meetings and more cynical than usual. A therapist or coach can provide objective, trained insight into patterns and offer structured tools like stress assessments to help identify hidden variables influencing stress. And this is what we do with our work here at Premier Performance, is we're helping high performers see when they're stressed out, what they're doing wrong, and how to adjust the situation in their system to better work with what they're doing. We all only have so much capacity. We have to be super efficient with it, especially if we want to be high achievers. So we have to manage this stuff and understand what is happening, what is coming into it. And this is why working with an expert can be so powerful for you. And we'd love to work with you guys if you want to get started. Just reach out to us and we can get started today. Another thing you can do is create transition rituals and plan recovery time. The act of planning breaks and having a system to shift from work mode to home mode forces an acknowledgement of personal needs. so we can schedule downtime intentionally. Treat rest as a performance strategy, not an afterthought or a reward. Plan recovery time with the same commitment given to important meetings, making sure that it's non-negotiable and you don't sacrifice it. Establish a ritual. This could be a 10-minute walk after work. This could be changing clothes immediately or a specific type of meditation you do. This ritual creates a psychological boundary that helps you mentally disconnect. And I think in a lot of ways we all have some sort of ritual, whether we're aware of it or not, that we do when we get home from the work that we're doing. It's just, is this thing taking an hour? Is this thing really productive and helping me? Or am I just really sitting in it and waiting for myself to feel better and disconnect? We need to be mindful and specific with what we're doing to take advantage of things. And if you're doing it right, you can set that ritual up to transition into home mode in like 5-10 minutes. It does not have to take a long period of time. When you do reach your break point, there are some things that can come up. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of those experiences. Something can happen with our cognitive and emotional systems. One of those is mental clutter or brain fog. We talked about that a little bit earlier. This can give us difficulty concentrating, focusing, or experiencing mental fog, making tasks that were once easy feel challenging. So we just can't think clearly. The clarity kind of escapes us in these times. And part of this is happening because we only have so much cognitive resources, and the more we tax ourselves, the less available we have to do the work. Over-apologizing is another thing. An increase in self-criticism, especially after minor mistakes, is usually tied to perfectionism and is an escalating fear of failure. So we have to be aware of when we're doing that. When we're over-apologizing, it's a great sign that self-criticism is rising in a really intense way. Emotional numbness or detachment. A loss of joy of work or hobbies that people once loved, feeling flat or detached from their accomplishments, even when things are going well externally. So you're just kind of detached, you're not feeling things don't feel as good, you're kind of just getting through every day, everything kind of feels dull. It's like the life of life just kind of got sucked out of it. Irritability and a shorter fuse. Displaying shorter patience with colleagues or loved ones means becoming frustrated easily over small things that wouldn't normally cause distress. You just have that shorter fuse ready to blow on any little thing where most other days it would never bother you. We can also have a loss of meaning or motivation show up, questioning the purpose of our work and feeling a sense of just like, what's the point? Why am I even doing these things? Even while continuing to perform well, because it's not about the performance, it's about that why behind it. And we might have these days where we're waking up, getting ready to go do the work, and we're just sitting there like, why am I doing this? I'm just in this everyday grind, and I feel like I'm never getting out of it. It almost feels like a trap. And again, I've had many times I've been stuck in those points, and I didn't really know what to do at times, but I have figured it out, and I have gotten help myself with it. And now I want to provide that help, which is partly what we're creating with the Premier Mindset and Premier Performance, working with people individually to set these things up. And on top of all those cognitive and emotional changes, we also have physical and health indicators that we can monitor too. Chronic fatigue may not be relieved by rest. Persistent tiredness that doesn't go away with a night's sleep or a weekend off is another signal that what we're doing isn't sustainable, and we got to figure out another plan or strategy because we're burning out. We're getting to a point that we can't recover anymore. Another big one that shows a lot is sleep disturbances. Experiencing insomnia or changes in sleep habits despite physical exhaustion is a good sign that there's more things we're struggling with than we think. And a lot of the work I've done as a therapist, as a performance coach, sleep is one of the best indicators that there's problems for us to deal with. It's been like almost 100% accurate rate that when I see that kind of issue, I almost know right away what is going on, even if I don't know the details of it. And it's a great sign that we need to do something different. And another one that might be something a lot of you guys deal with is frequent physical ailments. This could be reoccurring headaches, muscle tension, stomach problems, or a lowered immune system leading to frequent illness. So ask yourself, are you getting sick way more than everyone else around you? Are you getting headaches on a daily or even weekly basis? It's just kind of part of your life and you just accepted it. Do you have stomach problems constantly? And it's not because you have a diet that's not working for you, but you're just having issues that constantly keep showing up. If these things are happening, there's a good sign that you are pushing yourself to the edge and your body's not able to handle it, and we got to figure out a better structure or strategy to better manage all of these things so it stops causing issues for you. So I have another example story that I'm going to share with you guys because I think it's going to hit home for a lot of you. I think it's a pretty powerful story. And of course, all names are changed for confidentiality. We're never going to share anything private with anybody we work with, so don't worry about that. But I do think it'll be great for you guys to hear about how this stuff can happen in action. A client I once worked with, I'll call him Jeff, was a high-level leader everyone depended on. From the outside, he looked dialed in. But when he came to me, he said, "I'm doing everything I've always done, but it suddenly feels twice as hard." He wasn't burned out yet. He was at the breakpoint. It started small, rereading emails 3 times, hesitating on decisions he usually made in an instant, snapping at little things, zoning out in meetings, waking up tired even after sleeping fine. Nothing in his life had crashed. He had just been absorbing more than he realized. He was mentoring new hires, carrying tension from home, taking on extra projects, supporting friends, being the emotional anchor for everyone. Jeff's bandwidth was shrinking without him noticing. The moment that hit him was when he missed his freeway exit, a drive he'd taken for years, because he was replaying a work conversation in his head. Something as small as just missing an exit was the sign he needed to see to recognize this is not working anymore. That was the point he realized he wasn't losing skill, he was losing access to it. Once Jeff started identifying what drained him, what restored him, and stopped carrying things that weren't his responsibility, he got back to clarity fast. His performance didn't improve because he pushed harder. It improved because he finally caught the breakpoint before it turned into a full-blown burnout. So like Jeff, we gotta identify signals and what is happening to do the work we need to do to hold ourselves back from that burnout and not breaking. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to do the work. And the performance may not suffer right away. That's the hard thing with this. The performance might be fine, but it's a creeping thing. And eventually it starts to fall apart. And once you start seeing it fall apart, it's often too late and things just start collapsing before you can actually fix it because of the time it takes to fix it. So let's talk about the 5 fastest ways high performers blow past their breakpoint. First is over preparing, then hyper responsibility, then perfectionist control, then emotional suppression, and then finally staying on 24/7. Over preparing. This manifests as working on a task far beyond what is necessary to achieve the desired outcome, driven usually by a fear of missing a minor detail. So in action, this looks like spending hours researching a topic for a 15-minute presentation that only requires general knowledge. We do not need to spend hours becoming an expert because that's not what this is about. Another thing is writing and rewriting an email multiple times to ensure the tone and clarity are absolutely perfect before sending, being worried that something's going to come off wrong. Sometimes we just have to trust ourselves. And then creating contingency plans for every imaginable situation, including highly improbable ones, which results in analysis paralysis as you're constantly looking at new what ifs and you're freaking yourself out about it. Over-preparing can suffocate us because we're spending so much of those neural resources, those cognitive resources, on what ifs and planning instead of doing the work we need to do. The next one, hyper-responsibility, is an exaggerated sense of personal responsibility for outcomes that are often outside of one's control, driven by the belief that if I don't do it, it won't get done, or everything will fall apart. In action, this is taking the blame for a team's project failure, even when personal contribution was only a small part of the whole. It could also be apologizing excessively for minor issues, regardless of actual fault. Or maybe troubleshooting problems that haven't even happened yet, constantly anticipating and attempting to prevent future harm. So we're owning too much. It's good to own things, it's good to take things on, but if you take on too much, it breaks you down. Again, it is not helping you, it's hurting you. The next one is perfectionist control. This involves an intense desire to avoid mistakes and maintain flawless standards, leading to a refusal to delegate and an attempt to control every single variable. This can be an inability to delegate tasks because of the belief that others won't do the job as well as they can, which leads to more problems. And even when you're trying to give out tasks, you're kind of micromanaging everything because you don't trust people to do what they need to do. This could also be endlessly tweaking and obsessing over minor details long after a task is good enough. Published is better than polished. Certain things we need to make sure it's like almost perfect. But not everything needs to go that way. And if you spend your time on the wrong things doing that, you're going to waste a lot of time where you could be spending it on other things that's going to help move the needle. Another aspect is avoiding starting tasks due to a fear of not meeting impossible standards, which can ironically lead to a decreased productivity. And then next, we got emotional suppression. This is the deliberate effort to conceal, downplay, or ignore emotional responses to appear put together or strong. In action, this is automatically saying I'm fine when asked how they are feeling, even when internally they're feeling stressed or overwhelmed. Just not being honest about it. We're just kind of suppressing it. This could be smiling and nodding in frustrating situations rather than expressing concern or setting boundaries. Or maybe even using constant busyness, productivity as an anesthesia to numb themselves when anxiety or difficult emotions arise. Sometimes people feel better by just doing more things, so they push themselves to just stay busy, and that kind of numbs these things out instead of actually letting them feel what they need to feel. And then the last one is staying on 24/7. This is the inability to shut down after work, where rest feels dangerous or lazy, leading to a constant mental load and a blending of work and personal life. This can be such as checking work emails immediately upon waking up, before bed, and during family time. It could be mentally rehearsing to-do lists or troubleshooting work issues during weekends or planned vacations. Or just feeling guilty when resting or engaging in non-productive hobbies, resulting in an endless cycle of doing rather than being. And I've seen all 5 of these play out in different ways with high performers. They're very common, and this is why we're talking about them, because we want to shine awareness on these problems so you guys can better manage and handle them so they don't cause issues in your life in ways that you don't want. Now let's talk about the science of capacity. Performance drops even when skill doesn't. The reason why is that your skill stays the same, but access to it disappears. Our neurobiology starts to be impacted. We have working memory overload, intentional learning, attentional narrowing, nervous system dysregulation all show up and start impacting our work. The reason performance drops, even when high performers' underlying skill remains intact, is a science capacity issue. The brain runs out of cognitive resources needed to access those skills effectively. It literally does not have the capacity to do the thing anymore. Neurobiology shows that performance dips are caused by a breakdown in brain function under chronic stress and overload, not a lack of expertise. Your skills stay the same, but access to them disappear due to the working memory overload. This is one way it starts to fail. There are others involved, of course, but this is one way. Working memory is your mental workspace. This is responsible for short-term information processing and complex problem solving, and it has a strictly limited capacity. So we have to be very mindful of how much we're putting on it and how many things we're putting into it that are not helpful to what we're trying to do. Under sustained pressure, the working memory gets clogged with stress thoughts, anxiety, and too many open loops. Like, I must finish this report, I need to call that client, I'm so tired. We just kind of get flooded with all of these different things. And with no available capacity to hold and manipulate new information, the person can no longer make optimal decisions, learn new things, or think creatively, even though their long-term knowledge, their skill, is unchanged. We also have attentional narrowing, tunnel vision. Chronic stress in an overloaded nervous system causes the prefrontal cortex to struggle with top-down attention control. This brain then defaults to a threat detection mode. This is what we talked about with that threat system in episode 1, and we're going to go over that again very shortly in, I think in about 8 more episodes. We're going to revisit that. This leads to the intentional narrowing that causes issues. The high performer loses the ability to see the big picture. They become fixated or on immediate crises or minor details and cannot flexibly shift their focus to consider long-term strategy, alternative solutions, or the input of others. This tunnel vision creates a loss of strategic perspective and an inability to prioritize effectively, leading to poor quality decisions and inefficient use of time despite intense focus. When we lose sight of things, we're missing context. When we miss context, we're going to make a bad decision. We're not going to make as an informed decision as we need to. So that narrowing, that tunnel vision, is going to break us down and cause us to miss things. Another aspect is nervous system dysregulation. Sustained high performance keeps the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight mode, in overdrive. This constant state of alert prevents the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system, from restoring cognitive and emotional resources. In action, the body is flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. This chronic activation causes emotional volatility, such as a short temper, and it makes rational thoughts difficult as we get stuck more in that emotion mind than in the logic or wise mind. The brain is fundamentally wired for survival, not optimal work performance. In this state, we're going to run into issues, and we have to understand this aspect, because once we understand that we are set up for survival and not optimal performance, we can start putting in tools and strategies to reach optimal performance. It's not going to just happen for you. What your brain and body is going to do for you is keep you alive, which is good. We all need to be alive. But we got to take it further to then be high performers of what can I do to get to that level and stay there sustainably. In this state, the high performer becomes reactive rather than proactive, and their cognitive bandwidth shrinks dramatically. We start reacting to things instead of thinking about things and responding, and we don't have the resources we normally would to deal with the issue. Now let's talk a little bit about the mechanism of resource depletion. We have a limited amount of cognitive resources, which means the brain constantly is making trade-offs. There is a prioritization shift. The brain stops prioritizing complex cognitive functions like deep analysis and instead prioritizes survival and basic maintenance tasks. This is why we have to be careful of getting overloaded or overwhelmed, because it's going to move away from the complex cognitive functions and move more to just surviving. This leads to increased cognitive cost. Tasks require significantly more effort and neural energy than they usually would. The high performer still might achieve the goal. The cost of doing so is unsustainable and rapidly depletes their remaining capacity because they're not operating in the optimal form to keep doing this work in a sustainable way. They're burning out as they're doing it, kind of burning a candle at both ends. This results in the person appearing to have lost their skills, but in reality, their brain is simply too exhausted and overwhelmed to retrieve and apply the knowledge efficiently. The science of capacity confirms that rest isn't a luxury. It's a biological necessity for accessing skills and maintaining high performance. We have to take care of us. We have to let ourselves recharge. We can't redline our capacity constantly and think it's not going to impact our work. We have to let it recharge and refill so we can get back out there and do the hard work that we're doing. The internal red flags nobody talks about. Tasks feeling heavier, snapping quicker, decreased clarity, decision fatigue, and just needing more stimulation in general, like caffeine, noise, or avoidance. The internal red flags of an approaching breakpoint are subtle. They're often dismissed signs that indicate a high performer is running on empty. These are emotional and mental shifts that signal the capacity crisis is underway. Here are the silent red flags nobody talks about and what they look like when they're active. Tasks feeling heavier. This is an increased cognitive load. This is the internal experience where routine responsibilities require disproportionate effort. The mental friction involved in simply starting or completing tasks increases significantly. It can lead to procrastinating on small things, delaying sending a quick email or making a routine phone call because it feels like a monumental effort, because something that used to feel small now feels bigger. It could create a friction in the morning, feeling an unusual sense of dread or significant resistance when planning the day's tasks, where once there was only enthusiasm. You used to be just excited to do it, and now you're just dreading of, I have to do this thing. That's another great silent sign that you are burning out. Easy tasks feel hard. Needing to reread a simple document multiple times to grasp its meaning, a task that previously took you seconds is now taking minutes, if not maybe an hour sometimes. That is going to get in the way. Again, you do not have the resources to operate at that capacity, which is why it's taking longer and why it's harder. Now, talking about snapping quicker, which is emotional volatility. This red flag is an indicator of nervous system dysregulation, where the fight or flight response is primed and the prefrontal struggle to regulate emotional responses is occurring. We often have a shorter fuse in these times, meaning we're responding irritably or disproportionately to minor frustrations such as a printer jam, a slow website, or a simple question from a colleague. We're just quicker to break, quicker to snap. Instant frustration, the immediate jump to anger or impatience without the usual pause for rational consideration. Just jumping immediately into "I'm pissed off." Cynicism, a general increase in cynical or sarcastic comments about work, management, or the future where previous communication was optimistic. So again, our outlook on life is, and our perspective in general, completely changing. We also have decreased clarity, which is brain fog and mental clutter. A lack of cognitive resources leads to feeling mental fuzziness, making it harder to think straight or maintain focus. This mental clutter is kind of feeling like the mind is full of noise, or it has too many browser tabs open simultaneously, making it difficult to focus on a single stream of thought. It's almost like chaos in our mind. It can lead to memory lapses, forgetting names, appointments, or simple instructions that would normally be retained easily. It could also lead to difficulty articulating thoughts, struggling to find the right words in conversations or presentations despite having the expertise. So we can't even communicate or put the words out there in the ways that we want to because of that lack of capacity. And then decision fatigue. Decision fatigue occurs when the cumulative effect of making countless choices throughout the day drains mental energy, leading to poor decisions or the inability to make any decision at all. This can lead to indecision on simple matters, an inability to choose what to eat for lunch, what to wear, or which low priority task to tackle first. If you can't even make these decisions on simple, small matters, how are you going to do it on the bigger ones? Defaulting to no or the easiest option, choosing the path of least resistance or avoiding responsibility for choices rather than weighing options strategically. It can be really enticing to choose that path of least resistance because it's easiest. But in so many different ways of life that I've gone through, I have seen that path of least resistance almost never leads you to what you want in life. It almost always leads you away from it. So while it's going to be easy to choose that path, we have to constantly remind ourselves that path is not going to lead us to what we want. It just seems like it will. Poor boundary setting. Saying yes to additional work requests in the evening because the energy to say no has been depleted during the day. And this might just happen from a desire to people please, where we feel like it's difficult to say no and hold that boundary. We also have that desire for more stimulation at these times, such as caffeine, noise, or avoidance. The brain attempts to compensate for its depleted state by seeking external inputs to maintain alertness or find an escape from the internal discomfort. This can lead to increased substance use, relying heavily on caffeine throughout the day just to feel normal or functional. And it can be other substance use as well, like marijuana or alcohol, or even uppers like cocaine or methamphetamines, Adderall, all these kind of things to help us stay alert and function when really we might be running on E and we don't have any energy left. Constant noise requirement. Needing the TV on in the background, listening to loud music while working, or engaging in endless scrolling on social media to fill every quiet moment. Part of the reason we're doing that and we want that noise constantly is we're not okay just sitting and feeling what we're feeling, because we're trying to hold back all of these things. We're trying to keep doing the work, and then we do that by staying busy, staying productive, or just having something constantly happening, having constant stimulation. Once that stimulation stops, you tend to focus on a lot of those demons that you haven't want to look at for a long time. The avoidance spiral, actively seeking out distractions, jumping into social media, constant snack breaks, instead of starting on high focus work tasks. you're kind of just avoiding doing the things because you feel like you're not ready, or you feel like you just want a break, or you want to do this thing for a little bit, whatever it is. We justify it in a lot of different ways. And while we've talked a lot about how this looks and some strategies, we're going to talk a little bit more about micro reset tools to recover in real time. These are some little 90-second interventions such as grounding, half smiling, paced breathing, and tension release cycles to help you deal with these things and better set yourself up so you don't blow past your breakout point. Micro reset tools are quick interventions designed to downregulate your nervous system and recover cognitive resources in real time, preventing you from blowing past your breakpoint. First one is the grounding or sensory scan. This is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. Grounding pulls your mind out of overwhelming thoughts or anxiety loops and into the present physical environment by focusing on sensory input. So how to do it? First, you want to sit comfortably with your feet flat on the floor and your back straight. You want good posture. And then you want to notice and name 5 things you can see around you. It could be a pen, crack in the wall, cloud outside, whatever. Just 5 things that you see. Next, you want to notice and name 4 things that you can feel. Your feet touching the ground, the texture of your shirt, the cool air on your skin, the armrest of your chair, whatever it might be. Just 4 things you can feel. And then from there, you want to notice 3 things you can hear. Traffic outside, the hum of a computer, your own breathing, whatever you're noticing at that time. Just what are you hearing? And then you want to notice and name 2 things that you smell. Like candle, food, could be a certain scent that you have around, could be a perfume or cologne that you wear. And then our last one, you want to notice and name 1 thing you can taste. It could be gum or a mint, it could be food, it could be drink, water, coffee, just something you can taste. By going through that 5-4-3-2-1 throughout all of those senses, you kind of reset your body and get yourself back in the present moment, which is going to help ground us, and it's going to help us feel more connected to our own resources and our own body. This helps us reset that body when being overwhelmed to take back control. The next thing you can do is half smiling. This technique uses the facial feedback hypothesis, which suggests facial expressions can influence emotions. A gentle smile signals to your brain that it's safe to relax, easing mental tension. So how to do it? First, relax your entire face from your forehead down to your jaw. And then you gently want to turn up the corners of your lips into a subtle, serene smile. Kind of think of that Mona Lisa smile, just the way Mona Lisa's smiling in that painting. It doesn't need to be super visible to others. You're doing it for yourself. You want to hold this expression while breathing naturally for a few breaths. The goal is not to force happiness, but to create conditions in that your body fosters calmness and acceptance of that moment. What our body is doing, our body language, does impact how it feels. And I know that sounds silly sometimes, where it feels like it's kind of the other way around, but it does have a direct tie to it. So if you can put that little half smile on your face, it is naturally going to make you feel a little bit better. Just like if you can walk through your day with your kind of chest out and your shoulders pulled back, that good posture as you're walking, that can lead to you feeling more confident and more powerful in what you're doing than kind of like a sullen, downtrodden look. So being aware of how we're holding yourself is very powerful in these resets too. Another thing we can do is paced breathing. This is the 4-7-8 technique. There's a lot of different paced breathing out there. If you find something you like, feel free to do it. There's thousands of techniques. This is just one of the many. Paced breathing is a powerful way to signal your nervous system to shift from the fight or flight, the sympathetic mode, to the rest and digest, or the parasympathetic mode. So how to do it? First, position the tip of your tongue against the roof of your mouth, just behind your upper front teeth, and keep it there. Then you want to exhale completely through your mouth. Make sure all of the air is out, and then you close your mouth and inhale quietly through your nose to a mental count of 4. So that inhale is for 4 seconds. Then you want to hold your breath for a mental count of 7. So hold that breath in those lungs for about 7 seconds, and then you want to exhale completely through your mouth again for a count of 8. So then we breathe out longer than we're breathing in. That exhale is 8 seconds, while that inhale is 4 seconds. And then you want to repeat this cycle as much as you can. I like to give the rule of about 5 minutes doing breathing techniques in general because it gives it time to kick in. But if you can only do it for about 90 seconds, that will be fine. You will still get things from it. This is helpful when you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed to help just calm that body again, get back under control, and feel like you can respond rather than react to the situation of what's happening. Then we have tension release cycles. This is a physical technique to release accumulated muscle tension that often accompanies high performance and stress. So, how to do it? First, we got to name it to tame it. When you feel tension building, like in your shoulders, jaws, or hands, you got to acknowledge it. Say, I feel my shoulders really tense right now, or I feel like my jaw is really tense and I'm clenching my teeth. Whatever it is, we name it to tame it. They've shown in research that just acknowledging what you're feeling can reduce the intensity of it alone, even without doing anything with it. So we start there. Then we tense. So intentionally clench those specific muscles tightly for about 5 seconds. Grip the arms of your chair, raise your shoulders to your ears, squeeze your hands into fists, whatever you want to do, whatever works for you. And squeeze those muscles, clench those muscles, and then release it. Once you release it, you suddenly and completely let go of the tension in those muscles, and you exhale slowly at the same time. Imagine the tension leaving your body, kind of flowing out of your body as you're doing this. And then you want to repeat this cycle for 2 to 3 rounds, focusing on the contrast between tension and release to achieve a state of physical relaxation by getting the muscles loose and relaxed. Because again, that brain's going to check in with that body, and if the body's nice, loose, and relaxed, it's going to feel calm and controlled. So now let's talk about the breakpoint versus burnout, because we've talked about both throughout this, but I want to make it clear that they're not the same thing. Burnout is the crash, while breakpoint is the warning line. Catching the breakpoint is the real competitive advantage. It's not bad to run out of capacity, but if you can catch yourself doing it before things start to break, that's going to put you ahead of a lot of people and sharpen the edge you have over a lot of other competition. The breakpoint and burnout represent different stages of a high performer's journey towards exhaustion. Burnout is the resulting crash, while the breakpoint is the critical warning light that precedes it. Catching the breakpoint is the true competitive advantage because it allows for intervention and recovery before the deep long-term damage of burnout sets in. So we're going to talk a little bit about those differences in depth now. Breakpoint is the early stage of resource depletion. High-functioning individuals operating above sustainable capacity. There's subtle internal red flags like irritability, brain fog, tasks feeling heavier, kind of like we talked about. And at this time with breakpoint, recovery can take hours, days, or maybe a few weeks of targeted rest to feel better. Burnout, on the other hand, is late stage. It's full systematic failure. Unable to function at previous levels, exhaustion and cynicism reign, and overt symptoms start to come out, like clinical depression, chronic fatigue, complete disengagement, and recovery at burnout stage can take months or even years to fully recover the way we required. Catching the breakpoint is a powerful competitive advantage for both the individual and the organization and team, as it helps us preserve top talent. The primary benefit is retaining high performers. It prevents the loss of valuable institutional knowledge, expertise, and leadership capabilities that are difficult and expensive to replace once full burnout occurs. It is really hard to replace top talent if it burns out and breaks and it doesn't continue. So we have to keep the workers on our team that are working really well, that are achieving these high results, in good places so they can keep going. And we also have to keep ourselves there too, because it maintains optimal performance. Intervening at the breakpoint allows the individual to return to optimal performance levels quickly. They avoid the prolonged period of decreased clarity, productivity drops, and disengagement that characterizes burnout. So it helps us get back to that point of operating at the highest level possible. It also fosters agility and innovation. A team operating with sufficient capacity can be flexible, innovative, and resilient. A team filled with burned out individuals is rigid, risk-averse, and slow to adapt. So it keeps us going. It's going to keep us on edge of that cutting edge of success. Sustaining a healthy culture. When leaders promote and model self-awareness and recovery, it creates a culture where employees feel safe to set boundaries. This is crucial for long-term engagement and trust. The culture we're building comes from how we're leading. Culture comes from the top. What we're doing is going to change how everyone else underneath us works. So we have to be aware of how we're doing things in the culture we are setting. And if we're operating in a sense that's not going to work for us, where we're burning down, everyone else underneath you is going to try and copy that and do a lot of the same things. It also helps us prevent collateral damage. Burnout is one key individual often negatively impacts team morale and productivity. Catching the breakpoint prevents the ripple effect of emotional and operational disruptions that can occur. Ultimately, proactively managing capacity at the breakpoint allows high performers to leverage their skills sustainably, providing a continuous edge in a demanding environment. In summary, sustainable high performance isn't about outworking your decline. It's about spotting it early. The breakpoint is the moment your system starts slipping. Your clarity narrows, your stress tolerance drops, your energy drains faster than it rebuilds. High achievers tend to ignore these signals, assuming discipline will override them. But peak performance comes from recognizing the shift, adjusting early, and rebuilding capacity before burnout hits. When you pay attention to the breakpoint, you protect your edge and your longevity. So a couple questions for you guys to think about, reflect on your own, and I want you guys to send me the answers so I can hold you accountable to it, and I can give you guys some tools to start working on those things now. So again, we talked about this earlier, reflection is huge with this kind of work, so we have to understand what we're doing. First question, are you catching the early warning signs like increased irritability, slower decision making, mental fatigue, or overreacting to stressors you usually handle with ease? Are you seeing these things? If you're not, we got to start recognizing and noticing these patterns of these warning signs showing up for you. What patterns, responsibilities, or relationships drain you the fastest? And are you carrying pressure that isn't yours? So what things are draining you? What things are weighing you down that you're holding on to that isn't yours to carry? Let's reflect on that a little bit and see where that takes you. And then our last question. When was the last time you intentionally restored your system instead of forcing yourself to keep going? Like, when's the last time you actually reset and rested the way you needed to and let yourself recharge and not just keep pushing through it all? So give those some thought, reflect on those for yourself, send me those answers wherever you guys want to send them. There's a lot of ways to reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you guys, and we're going to keep going with this stuff. Resilient minds, premier results. That's what we're building here with the Premier Mindset. We're building you guys up mindset-wise so you can have the results you want. But to get there, recognition is the first step. We have to see what we're doing. We have to understand what is going wrong, what is going right, so we can do more things that work for us and we can perform at these optimal levels. So if you did find a benefit from listening to these things and hearing about this stuff, leave us a review. That definitely helps us out. Our goal with the Premier Mindset is to spread awareness and get this in front of as many people as possible. So you guys sharing these things and giving us a review is very helpful. And if you think there's someone in your life that could benefit from hearing these things too, send it their way. It might be the change they've been looking for. It might be the motivation they need to get to work and just get the recharge they need so they stop burning out or breaking. So share it with whoever you can. We always appreciate you guys getting this out to people. It is helpful as we continue to grow. I make it a point to give you actionable tools to find success in your life. So let me know if it's helping. I love staying connected with you all. I want to know what is happening, how it's going. I want to hear about the successes, the failures, the disappointment. I want to be involved with these things with you guys. I want to be a resource to help. So if we're working one-on-one, that's great. But even if we're not, I still want to be involved and see how things are going. Don't be afraid to reach out. And practicing that vulnerability with me can be a great way to start doing it more and more in your own life. So let me know what's going on. You can reach out to me in a few different ways. First one is email. My email is tmailer@premierperformancereno.com. My last name is spelled Mahler. You can text or call me directly at 775-561-0056. We have the Instagram and the TikTok with the same name, so you can get involved on those communities as we continue to build it up and post things. The name for both of those is Premier_Performance_Reno. We have the Facebook page and the LinkedIn page with the same name on both of those, which is Premier Performance LLC. And then the Twitter or the X account, which is @Premier Reno LLC, followed by our website, which is www.premierperformancereno.com. You can Get involved, check those things out, get involved in these communities as we continue to build them, as we're going to keep on putting things out every day on these social media sites, and we're putting out new podcasts every week. Next week, we're going to cover CBT, what it is, what it looks like, how to use it, how it can help you in your life, and a couple CBT skills and tools that you can start using now and see if it's beneficial with what you got going on. So we're going to keep building on all this. Every episode builds off of the last. So if you're just getting in with us now, it's great to have you guys. Make sure to check out the other episodes that have come out before these, because every episode is continuing to build on what we're building. So we're going to keep going, but I hope you guys have a great time. I hope you guys have a great life, enjoying yourself this week. If there's anything you need, let me know. Otherwise, take care, push yourself, and be the best you can be, and put yourself out there and see what you can accomplish when you do take that risk. I'll see you guys soon.